there were certain moments where I thought, oh wow, that was me. That was me on a boat. It's like, oh my God, those 48 hours, I wouldn't be sat here talking to you. This is a man in his late 60s, looking frail and pale and dying. If you had no income, your next illness is going to be your last. 47 years old this year. To this very day, I've still never had a family holiday with my...
Some leadership stories start in boardrooms, but some begin in the most extreme circumstances. My guest today, Stephen Tighe, is the managing director of Ocean King, a £15 million seafood supplier, but his journey to leadership started when he was just 18 months old, adrift in the ocean with only 48 hours to live. His family's boat had broken whilst fleeing Vietnam, and they were left stranded, until a British cargo ship rescued them. The moment of survival shaped his mindset, his business and his mission. And today we're going to be talking about resilience, leadership, and what it means to build a business that gives back. Stephen, you told me to call you both today. Welcome to Leaders in Disguise. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Was that a good intro?
It was a good intro.
For me, where I'd like to start, if I may, I've mentioned your family fleeing Vietnam War and lots going on in that. Could you just paint that picture and what you know about why your parents made that tough decision to start the journey in a life that we'll get into further down the line?
I can. I suppose for me, a lot of it is quite new because I've only just started learning about it, as I've told you in my story. Because for a vast part of my life, that was blanked out. So because I was only 18 months old when we fled, I was too young to remember anything. And all I've complained about all my life was that hard work I talk about, that work ethics, that resilience my father always had. And for me to then delve back into that history and trying to learn about it, I've had to Google, I've had to ask people about why things happen, how things happen. Yeah, it's been quite an enlightening story, but at the same time, there's certain things I heard about. I can't say it's traumatic because it's all in the past, but there were certain moments where I thought, oh wow, that was me. That was me on a boat. And there's a BBC film clip of a captain being interviewed, the captain who actually saved us, Captain Healy Martin. I've got to mention his name for people who want to Google him. So he rescued us on his ship was called the Saibonga. We were in fishing boats. And the news clip asking him how long the boats and the people would survive, he said 48 hours. And for me, that was a trigger moment. It's like, oh my God, those 48 hours, I wouldn't be sat here talking to you. I wouldn't have done any things I've done in my life, the business, stuff with my children and what they do. Every element of my life from the 18 months onwards wouldn't have existed if it hadn't been for that captain.
You said that you've only been looking at it in the last couple of years, and you by all means reveal your own age if you wish, but it's been a while since then. I'm being polite when I say it. Yeah. It's been a while since that happened. What triggered you to go and look at that journey and do that research?
Each moment that goes by, I've got almost a next step to new things I'm discovering, because the way I view this story, it doesn't finish here. It's what I do with this story for the next half of my life that would make it a worthwhile story.
So what triggered it then?
The main thing that triggered it is see my dad on a hospital bed. He was having treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4. It's a form of cancer, and he was having chemotherapy, and he was still on his iPad, on his mobile phone, taking orders. And this is a man in his late 60s, looking frail and pale and dying. And I was just sat there watching him and thinking, what the F are we doing this for? You know, the mindset we'd had unto that point, I suppose it was always survival, and we were growing the business without a real aim. It was always just do better than what we did. And so the growth naturally happened for the business, and we're obviously good at what we do, which is why the growth came about. But there was never an end goal. That there wasn't, let's achieve so many million, or let's achieve so many employees, or let's take this market share. It was never about that. It was about survival. And just watching my dad still taking orders, the real question came about. And I sat down with my brothers for the first time to talk. You know, I've just seen my dad, and he's still taking orders, and he's having chemo. What are we doing it for? Why are we doing it? And so that triggered the whys. The why is the creating opportunities, enriching life.
Yes.
Now, for the people who've not heard my story, would think a cheesy slogan from I've had business training, corporate spiel. I think, oh yeah, creating opportunities, enriching lives. Every company could do that. But in reality, you've listened to my story. If you talk to me, I'll happily talk to anybody about it, as you know. And you'll understand that back in Vietnam, there's no more opportunities, and there's no enriching lives. Because I went back to Vietnam about 7 or 8 years ago, and there's certain moments where I saw people still working, you know, from all demographics. There were different ages, different disabilities, and they were still working.
It takes me to move it on slightly, is that you spoke about your father being this hardworking. I think hardworking doesn't really do him justice based on what you say, that story about him working so hard that he's overworking. He's embedded that you must work hard to be able to create those opportunities. Would I be right in saying that?
With today's society, I know you touch a lot on well-being, mental health, etc., but people develop coping mechanisms to how they encounter life and tackle adversity or hardship. So my father's story, basically, he was one of 13 children. He got 12 siblings. Who's the second eldest. His father, my granddad, died when my father was only 13 years old. And so back in Vietnam, there's no benefit system, there's no welfare, no NHS. If you had no income, your next illness is going to be your last, be it a flu, cold, or whatever. You could even break your arm and get an infection from it. So you have to work. So my father would have to feed his mum too. So my father's been working since he was 13 years old. And so for me, my analogy is, and I'm not a psychologist or trainer, but it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
He knows that if he works hard, he will get through vast majority of situations that he's been encountered with. And so my granddad had an underwear factory. He must have been riding a scooter illegally through Saigon, but that's what he had to do to deliver the underwear throughout Saigon to survive. And from that moment onwards, I assume he must have had other jobs, businesses, just to put food on the table for not only his family, but then when I was born, he was married for me and my mum. When we came to the UK, again, didn't speak their language, didn't have the qualifications to get that
everyday job, I guess.
Yeah, even applying to, I don't know, to be a checkout operator in Tesco's would have been a challenge for him because his lack of English, lack of qualifications. And I've been brought up not to rely on other people, not to rely on benefits, not rely on handouts. And so my dad, when he came, he had 3 jobs. He worked in takeaway, He worked in supermarket during the day, a Chinese supermarket. And I think at one point he described it, he worked in a morgue as well. That was only for a few days, but that was really,
Never again.
that was an experience for him. But it was just always working, and he'll work every hour of the day. And I remember when I started Ocean King, it was 17 hours a day, 7 days a week, 10 years straight without holidays. And I famously say that I'm 47 years old this year. To this very day, I've still never had a family holiday with my parents.
So it's a question I've never asked you, actually. We've known each other for a fair while now. Have you ever done any other jobs? Have you ever worked in McDonald's or Tesco's or anywhere like that?
So I worked on a market stall. That was my first ever... Well, actually, I had a paper round. I worked on a market stall selling flowers, even though I had hay fever. And this is for a neighbour of mine. So I remember I lived approximately, I think it must be about 4 mile into the town centre, Newcastle under Lyme. And I'd ride on my bike. How old was I? I must have been 13, 14 years old, riding a bike down to Newcastle Market to set up a flower stall, then ride to school, and then back down to Market Stall afterwards for 5 o'clock to take the stall down. And I was paid £2 each time I did it, so it's £4.
Wow.
For that. And then
showing our age now. So
and then
I think I was on £3.20. I think I was on or something.
That's per hour. I'd work all day on Saturday. Again, I would be there from 7 in the morning until about 5, and I was paid £10 for it. But again, I just did it because I suppose, even though the value of money was important, I think the value of work from my parents' point of view was more important.
You said about, it's about working, it's about earning something rather than nothing. And it's a really interesting conversation that I have all the time with different leaders, certainly business owners, where we talk about measuring success, and we lead and we grow and we do really well, but actually how we look at success, how we say that we're achieving, how we're doing well. So many people might say £10 as, I use that figure because you mentioned it, but that £10 is going, oh, you've not really achieved much today. But in so many other ways, there's other people that will go, well done, you've earned some money and you've gone out there and you've done something. And would you say that, I think you've already said it, haven't you, that your dad and your parents, sounds like both of them were driving you towards recognizing that you were going out or you were achieving something. And I wonder, again, I'm not a psychologist by any stretch of the imagination. I've worked around a lot of them, but do you think perhaps that way of life that your dad and saying that he was working from a young age has made you recognize that achieving something, about seeing success at so many other levels, gives you that a bit of a more grounded view than other people?
Yeah. So for the first 10 years of Ocean King, we were working from a van, a truck. So when we first started, it was from a 7.5 ton truck. I think we rented it. And then very quickly, I got my HGV license and bought a 15 ton truck. But none of them were like measured growth. We had no idea what our turnover was, what our margins were. The only goal I had at the end of the day was to empty the truck. So we'll load up in the morning. So we had suppliers that would meet us at 7 o'clock in the morning at a motorway service station, load up into our truck, and our truck would be full. I wouldn't say how heavy, but they were absolutely full. And we'll drive around in our set routes and we'll empty the truck. Any fuel receipts, any hotel receipts we had, they were just placed on a big dining room table, and all the paperwork would just gather up. But the only concern we had was to sell the products. Restock, sell again. Restock, sell again. There's nothing about, we've got so many. I didn't even know how many customers we had. The matrices, we didn't have any key scorecards. My father, I suppose he'd either not been conscious of it or be afraid of knowing what those figures were. But me, at the back of my mind, I was trying to add it all up and try to. We've got to have some gauge of what it was, and because of my language, my English, I had to deal with accountants, solicitors, insurance company, and they'll come, what's your turnover? I'm like, don't know.
So you ended up taking all that responsibility on then, did you, in the early days?
That came to a crunch 10 years into the business where we think,
wow,
this can't continue.
10 years is a long time.
Yeah. So our accountants did the best job we possibly can for us. But essentially, our accountant at the time, he was brilliant. He sent someone into I think we moved to Loughborough then, and just spent the best part of a month sorting every single element of financial control into our business. So everything from debtors, creditors, your GRNIs, your APs, all that malarkey was set up. But in terms of how we measure that success, I do it now. I want to see how many but before it was, I suppose it's how many cases of beef I was ordering, and that's how I was gauging, or how many king prawns I was reordering.
I mean, people see that from a scalability point of view as well. If you want to scale up and you want to grow something, and it sounds, and I'm hearing it, I'm really interested actually, just listening to you and some of the people that I deal with now, is that you genuinely do. You have so many people that start a business and they don't have a business plan.
Yeah.
They don't really think, but it's a really, I think a positive mentality is to go, right, what have we got? What do we need to sell? I know some people, and I work with some people that have got shops that have got products in that they just don't get rid of.
Yeah.
And in fact, a good friend of mine, and similar analogy to what you're saying there, is a friend of mine. I said, don't forget that you're a shop, and it's great that you're buying all of these lovely things for your shop, but you've got to sell them as well. And we said, your plan is, and the strategy is, everything on these shelves need to be sold.
Yeah.
And it was an obvious statement to make, but like you say there, is that you're buying stuff to sell, you're not buying it to keep. But you've grown this empire of a business. Can you just talk me through the scale of the business? What we from one side, we're talking about a lorry back in what sort of year was that when did you start?
From 1997 till 2005, it was just, we started with 7.5 ton and then 15, so 2 trucks until 2005, and then we invested in Loughborough, which was a 300 pallet warehouse capacity, but basically it was 5,500 square feet.
Okay.
I remember moving to there. It was just amazing that we had the space and we had a base to purchase things. And in our trade, things like stock market, where you buy it right, then you guaranteed a price for the duration of that availability.
So 5,500 square foot, did you say, that building? What size are you in now?
32,000 square feet.
It's quite a difference in 20 years.
In one move, it was, from 5,500 to 32,000.
How many people have you got in the business now, roughly?
Last count was 40.
40?
Yeah, so in last year, we increased by 10.
Wow.
And it's just...
And you've got so many growth plans. I know you gave us a bit of a private behind-the-scenes tour of different parts of the building that you've got so much ideas and exciting plans for. In terms of operation, you are predominantly East Midlands, and I think you said that you've got one customer that you look outside of that. Am I right?
Yeah, so but people will never have heard of Ocean King because we don't market, we don't brand, we'd not spend a penny on advertising. Every single customer we drummed up has been through word of mouth. And we were just Midlands, but when your loyal customers move out of the area and go to some of the far reaches of what the UK has to offer, as far south as Dorset, then we usually would tell them that it's too far for us, we can't go because it's a 6-7 hour drive. But then he was so adamant that he wanted us to deliver down there. He drummed up, I think it was 10 customers himself, and then the other customers drummed up more customers for us, and we now have to go down to Dorset once a week, painstakingly.
Literally a lorry load goes down
there.
And
it's a pain because if we make a mistake, we have to make it right. And nature, what we do, there are going to be mistakes. There might be a bag of bean sprouts missing or something like that, and to drive 7 hours to correct something, we've had to do. But I can't frown upon business. But for me, it's business. We can only commit to business if it's sustainable. If we never overpromise of anything. We rather underpromise and overdeliver.
And I was hearing how that plays out then. So going from that van, and I can see it in my mind. This van, this lorry with one or two types of products. Very few products. I've been in your warehouse. I've seen the huge freezers that you've got. The range of products that you've got from. Did I see like Fairy laundry liquid on one shelf to beef and on another to seafood? You've really started to you've really expanded that range. What challenges come with going from that van of a few products to a 32,000 foot warehouse, did you say?
Yeah. Challenges. Oh my God,
or name a couple.
Right, okay. So at the moment, we have over 1,000 products on our SKUs. And considering we don't advertise, 800 different items check out of our warehouse every single week. And the whole conundrum of keeping stock, stock availability, managing, I suppose, rotation. One of the biggest challenges we had was when we moved from Loughborough to Derby was the scale of the place, where the guys would probably walk a few hundred metres and they'll pick a run. They're walking miles now. And so we've had to, and we're still working on that now, just having a more efficient way of working. So when guys it's all a manual process. You walk down an aisle, you pick. It's making sure that is as smooth as possible, so they're not walking back on themselves. It's still work in progress. We invested in WMS systems, a new ERP that's coming in soon. But yeah, the challenges we have every single day, and just the simple things that was never an issue before, and something that's silly like tofu.
Yeah.
And ensuring that obviously tofu is it's a delicate product that we sell in in trays, and until we moved to Derby, it's quite a notorious thing that we might smash 1 or 2 tubs every quarter. Got to the point where we're smashing in about 5 or 6 every month.
Okay.
And for me, that's a complete write-off. It wasn't acceptable. And being able to get to the bottom of why our process hasn't changed, but why are things not working as efficiently as it used to? Why is there now wastage? And for me, me and my brothers, as you've seen, we've gone back onto the shop floor to try to identify what was going on, because since we've moved in, it's been the challenges from every aspect. So I'll look at things from a slightly high level. I'll look at the cost of the building, look at the electricity costs, what the solars are bringing in, and whether we're making any profit, we're making losses. But then for them, it's to identify why things like the tofu were getting smashed, even though the business had almost plateaued in last year. So the scale up hasn't actually happened yet. They're about to, but
still learning.
It's just getting those systems, processes into place. And I think for a good 2 years, the brothers have been slightly hands off, letting manage a relatively inexperienced management team look after it, and now we've had to step in and just try to sort out.
I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions, if I may, because we're vastly running out of time. So if you can keep them brief, and there's going to be temptation to ask so many more on the back of it, so I'm going to really hold back where I can do. You've talked about going from that smaller business to that large business. If there's one thing that you could go back and change, what would it be?
Small to large. For me and my brothers, earlier business mentorship, coaching, training. It's always about people. And when you bring people in, we can't expect them to do a 17-hour shift that we were doing, work 7 days a week, 10 years without holiday. It's being able to learn how we not just talk to people, how we listen to people, how we engage with our people so that they can engage with what we're trying to do, what our ultimate aim is, and make sure the core values are lived to in how we do business. And again, I've learned now, that's repetition. Can people allow? Firstly, you have to employ the right people and put them in the right seats. But what I've only just recently learned is that not everybody is right, and when they're not right, it's better for them, better for us to move them on early to a company that is more engaged with their core values and their aims. And then when that happens, you can see everybody else suddenly lift up. It's amazing. I mean, you hear in business, you sack quickly, hire slowly. And that's just so important to get the right people engaged. And you want A players. You genuinely, the people who are that share your values, that have the ultimate aim and know exactly where we're heading and how to do it, and have that care.
Complex challenge to do. So next question, a bit of a light-hearted one. You've got 1,000 SKUs, 1,000 different types of products, you said, or thousands of them. What's one product your favourite product that you sell, that you're most proud of?
There's only one. It has to be our prawns.
Prawns. I was hoping you might say something different.
I've been selling prawns for 28 years, and I'm not sick of them. And I think that there needs to be a resurgence in prawns because it's got all the protein and the right number of calories and everything. So
still proud of that.
But there are prawns, and then there are prawns. It's choosing the right prawns. And if you've been to restaurants that have had our prawns, you'd understand why we do so well with our prawns.
We need to get a section on the website that says these restaurants stock our prawns. You need to go.
Yeah, should.
Yeah, maybe that's an idea for you. Yeah. Proudest moment with a customer over the last 25 odd years?
Oh, proudest moment with customers. Oh, there's so many of them. I suppose that the one in Dorset is a typical example of our customer bending over backwards for us so that we could sustain our supply into them. The customer who moved into a new area actually going around to not just his friends but his competitors, to say, consider Ocean King. They've got great stuff. Buy from so that they could fulfill a truckload of stuff. Because
just don't buy the prawns because we want to sell those. Maybe.
Yeah. That's a proud moment. But again, our relationship with our customers, I can't just pinpoint one. They've been so loyal to us. Literally, they've been with us. Some of them been with us for 28 years, the whole duration, or even further than that, because my dad was in a slightly different company. And they've stuck with us. These are no longer customers. They're genuine friends who. Yeah, we connect with personally, emotionally, and
hard to keep that going, I guess, and not drawing into these quick fire questions.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Quick fire. Yeah,
it's a hard thing to maintain as you grow. Yeah. Which leads me to my next question, my last question, on these questions, is so let's go 25 years of rough numbers here. In 25 years' time, what does Ocean King look like?
I'll give it 10 years time.
go with that.
Because we've written that out. 10 years, we got 3 hubs, but the emphasis around that, creating opportunities, enriching lives, how we can make you better by walking through the doors of Ocean King. I love helping how to do that. You know, the stuff I'm doing with young enterprises. I've mentioned briefly about the difficulties I had starting the business the first 10 years of my life. Yeah. You have children leaving school without simple, not math skills, but life skills.
Yeah.
Banking, loans, interest rates, negotiation, you know, managing people. You don't have those skills. So what can we do to reach the lives of these people who could do better by meeting someone like myself who could say, right, this is how I can inspire you, but this is what I did, and this. I suppose that's it.
No pun intended, but a good one nevertheless is that there's a lot of hungry young people out there, you know, mature people that really want.
Young people get such a bad press because of what you see on TikTok videos, Facebook videos, you know, wearing balaclavas, hoodies, and on scooters on the pavement. That's the perception that people our age have of young kids. But in reality, so what I've seen from young enterprises, that you got hungry kids, given the right direction, guidance, they're inspired by The Apprentice, what you see on TV, and the Dragon's Den, and as part of Young Enterprise, these children in final year of high school, they have to come up with a project and a business, and they'll sign a managing director, finance director, marketing director, and they make a little business, and then they present a little Dragon's Den style case to you at the end of the year, what they've achieved, what they've learned from it, what challenges they've had, and how they've overcome it.
You sound like a guy that's got a lot of things going on in his life, and you're doing so many things to look after everybody. You've got your own family, which we haven't even managed to talk about today. If there's one thing that you could get other people to do, that perhaps maybe a lesson that you perhaps should take a little bit more yourself, what would that be to get that work-life balance, whether you do it or not?
Yeah, so I would say I'm actually... Well, my wife might disagree with this, but
She's got that prerogative, I guess.
Yeah, so you could set your tasks on a daily basis, like you do in business, like your time schedule. I'm really bad with timekeeping, by the way. But every morning I make the breakfast for the kids and I take them to school. I was a coach at my son's football thing, so I never missed a match. He went. My wife takes to swim, but then occasionally I have to sit in the swimming car. But at the weekends, that is family time, and so I do spend as much. I suppose a lot of people, when they're growing up, they look at their parents and they think, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do differently," and that's what I've tried to do as much as I can. So I go on trips as often as possibly can. I've got a trip booked to Taiwan, Japan in about 4 weeks' time. For the first time, I booked a ferry to France for the summer. I've never done, and it's going to be a driving trip. The 4 of us going south of France and just learning. All the kids are going to be made to speak French. So it's a lot of good. So
you're getting
time.
That balance then, actually, already, right? It sounds like I always talk about leading with intention, but actually you are leading that. Not only the work and what you've got as a business, but you're
that's
leading
me doing
that
it selfishly.
balance.
If anything, I should be more conscious of what my brothers are doing, because you've seen them work those hours. Because it's almost ingrained. I told you, my dad, even though he's semi-retired, he's on remission from his cancer, but he'll still be on the iPad, watching us on CCTV, tracking all our vehicles, watching the daily sales. So that mindset, that's his comfort blanket. For me to insist that we go on a family holiday now for all of us, I think that's maybe a bit too much to ask. It'll take him really out of his comfort zone. And
maybe not a bad idea.
Yeah. But that's how it is. Some things I know we just can't change.
And I think I always talk about the word selfish, because I don't think we can lead selflessly. helping others and making sure that they're okay, unless we are selfish and are not looking after ourselves.
Yeah.
So, to use that cliche analogy of you making sure that your cup is as full as it possibly can be, maybe that's the takeaway that you've just said there, is making sure that others get that and they are supporting each other.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many secrets that we need to add, but we
We could talk and talk. I've really enjoyed this. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I just talked to talk.
I feel like, if we hadn't, and for complete transparency, we do lots of recordings in one day. If we had the rest of the day, I'd be like, let's go and get a beer and let's go and talk more.
Yeah.
Perhaps we need a follow-up podcast if we can hold you that too. And
I have to say, your question, and you do know how to draw out the answers. So no, it's been really a pleasure to talk to you this morning.
Thank you. No, I've really, really enjoyed talking to you, and we'll talk plenty of times. We need to get you back on microphone to hear these business secrets. Let's give some reference for people to be able to find you. So Ocean King, I'm sure they can Google you, they can find you online.
I suppose on LinkedIn, Ocean King Limited, or Stephen Ty. I think I've changed it to the Prawn King now. But Stephen Ty, Ocean King, Prawn King on TikTok, Facebook.
Brilliant. Like you say, people can learn more about your story. I know I've seen the
there've been lots of snippets on TikTok, and and they're all sequenced. I'm not sure if I could put the whole video on because it's a 20-minute video, and a lot of people like me to tell it live to them as well. But yeah, you get an idea what the story is on there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. You've inspired me to just think a little bit differently about how I lead with intention and how I go about life, and encourage others to take maybe a leaf out of Stephen's book, shall we say. So thank you for that. Of course, there's so many people that are watching, that are listening. If you listen on Spotify, people watch on YouTube. You reminded me today to remind people that we're not just shorts, but there are full feature episodes on YouTube and Spotify and all the different platforms. If you've got questions, or you want to think about coming on to, and you've got a similar story that you want to share with people, perhaps you're in a leadership role now, please can I encourage you to drop us a message. Email address is hello@leadersindisguise.com. So hello@leadersindisguise. Of course, we're all on platforms as well. So Leaders Disguise. We dropped the in bit. I don't know why. That was the marketing feedback that I had. And we'll share Stephen's story and keep watching and keep tuning in. So thank you, Stephen. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so have I.
Thank you.